Well, as you can see from my odometer, we just crested 600 miles on my 2022 Yamaha MT-09 SP, and it is time for its first service. So I'm going to take a ride over to Martin Moto, have the service performed, and tell you a little bit about, my thoughts on the bike so far after 600 miles. It's still early. There's a lot of learning to do about this bike, but yeah, let's talk about it. So it's been 610 miles since I bought this bike, brand new from Martin Moto, about a month ago. And I hate to say that, I actually feel kind of bad that it's taken a month to get 600 miles on it so that I could do the first service. But man, it has been a really wet transition from winter to spring. We've got lots of rain, lots of wind, freaks, snow squall here and there. So it really hasn't been too conducive to riding. I actually feel guilty that I wasn't able to take the bike in last week, but it just didn't work out that way. So it's been 611 miles, and broad spectrum, this bike is amazing. It is everything that I could want and more. It's got power to spare. It just does everything so effortlessly. When you get on a backcountry road and crack open the throttle, you just can't help but smile. It is truly an amazing machine, and it is surprisingly comfortable too. When I did my initial impressions of the MT-09 video, I had mentioned that I transitioned from a 2018 Honda CB650F, which had a more leaned over kind of a feel to it. Now I know that I can adjust these bars, the risers. You can spin them 180 degrees, and it controls the pitch of the handlebars. In one position they're a little further back, in the other position they're slightly forward. So if I wanted to get that slightly more aggressive feel, it's a pretty simple process. I could just unbolt it, flip it, put it back together, and we're all set. And the foot pegs are the same way. They're actually adjustable. There's 3 positions. You can get them higher, lower, or right where I have them in the stock configuration in the middle. So it's pretty cool that right off the floor, this bike has adjustments where you can kind of fine-tune it to fit the way you want it to. Now if you're looking for massive adjustments, if you want to feel like you're on a sport bike and you want that clip-on feel with high rear sets, you're not going to accomplish that with the mild adjustments that this bike allows for. But I think it's really cool that adjustability is kind of baked into the base model bike, and it gives you a little bit of freedom without having to go out and buy aftermarket parts to get minor changes out of it. So the longest trip I've taken on this bike was when I went to see Iron Man, and that video is in the card up above. From start to finish, that ride was about 11 hours long, and just to be blunt, my ass was killing me after 11 hours of riding. Now we did stop for about an hour to have lunch, but it had gotten so bad that when I was approaching stop signs and stoplights, I was dreading putting my feet down and taking the weight off of my ass. Taking the weight off the seat, because it just hurt so bad. It was a terrible feeling. It hurt riding and it hurt standing up. Felt better after you stood up for a few seconds, but that initial transition of weight just hurt. So I'm considering ordering the Yamaha Comfort Saddle, which I'm kind of on the fence about, because for normal riding, everyday average sort of rides that I do, this bike is plenty comfortable. It's just those all-day trips that can be taxing. The only real issue that I've had with this bike has been fuel capacity / fuel consumption, and I'll do a separate video on that, because it's kind of interesting. I recorded a video talking about my thoughts on fuel consumption and fuel capacity, and then after I had the ECU flashed and I started putting some more miles on it, the situation completely went away. So I'd imagine that the way things are going, it's going to continue to improve, because initially the first couple tanks of gas that went through this, it was bad. Like I wasn't even getting 100 miles out of a tank of gas. In fact, I think I might have been lucky to get 80. But again, video for another time. So I'm about to pull into Martin Moto. I'll come back after I have my service performed, tell you what it cost, and let you be on your merry way. So hang tight. No, I'm not first. Hey there, Walt here from WaltInPA, and it just occurred to me that I took my bike in for its 600 mile service yesterday, which was the first Yamaha scheduled service, and totally forgot to record a video after I got out. So this will be a recap of sorts. So the plan was to get to Martin Moto, my local dealership, around 8:40, 8:45. They open at 9, and get in line. Given that it was in the high 30s yesterday, I anticipated being, first, maybe second in line. I got there, wound up being third. About 9 o'clock, the service manager comes out with his clipboard, and he starts going through everyone's service. And I'm trying to gauge, how long is this going to take based on what everyone in front of me needs. So the guy in the front, who's got a Ducati Scrambler, just needs an oil change. And there's a potential issue with the filter. They don't think they have one in stock, but he's got one at home, so his wife might bring it. So that was a little confusing. The guy in front of me had a Triumph, what looked like a Sport Tourer. He was getting a rear tire replaced, an oil change, and possibly something else. I think the foot peg came loose and he wanted them to take a look at it. And then for me, when I said, I'm here for my very first service, the guy looked at me, and you kind of see his face kind of come down a little bit. He says, usually we don't do these first services on the MT series on a Saturday, because it's when they do their walk-in service. Because generally these first services take a while. But in this case, we'll take care of it for you. So he puts me down, and they start bringing the bikes in. I'm wandering around the shop, and I'm thinking, nice and quick. This should be about an hour. It's an oil change. They're doing inspections on various components, and he had mentioned that they were going to do a diagnostic with the ECU. So, maybe it'll take about an hour. I should be out of here. Well, it didn't take an hour. Apparently, the first Yamaha service for the MT-09 SP, or the MT-09 series in general, is a 2.5 hour service. So be prepared to wait if you're going to stand in line and wait for your motorcycle to be finished, or if you're going to drop it off and come back. Figure on about 2.5 hours. They're going to do an oil change. They're going to do a diagnostic test and check codes. They're going to lift the tank and check throttle inputs or something to do with under the tank. And then there's just a barrage of other checklists, or of checkpoints that they're going to run through to make sure that your bike is in tip-top shape after 600 miles. So, all in all, again, 2.5 hour service. Depending on what your dealership charges for their hourly rate, in my case, was $110 times 2.5 hours plus materials, oil filter, whatnot. You're probably looking at between $320 and $350 for that first service. If you're just looking for a ballpark number, if you're taking it to a smaller indie style shop that has a lower hourly rate, or if your dealership just doesn't charge $110 an hour, you can expect that number to decrease. But all in all, pretty happy with the level of service that I got. Didn't realize that I was going to be waiting 2.5 hours, but all in all, I was pretty happy. I mean, I'm glad they took care of me, because if they had sent me away and asked me to reschedule for a later date, it could have been anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks before they could get me in for service, because this is the busy time of year and service fills up fast. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, you want to see more. Hit the thumbs up button, helps me spread the word about these videos. As always, ride safe, and I will catch you in the next one.